In the year 2000, pop icon Madonna married the live-action Aladdin director Guy Ritchie, prompting Madonna to move to the UK. This move to the UK made for one of the cringiest things Madonna has ever done: speak with a British accent.
Because art has nothing to do with money and everything to do with love. And like love, it can be inspiring, inexplicable, provocative, and sometimes infuriating.
Madonna already was kinda speaking with a British accent privately. Her marrying a person for Britain, I guess, solidified it, and Madonna felt she could do it legitimately in public without anyone questioning it. Even though everyone was like, you're from Bay City, Michigan. What's with this Rule Britannia thing? In all honesty though, rich white Madonna pretending to be posh British Madonna was more embarrassing than harmful. A white lady pretending to be a different kind of white lady is hilarious and hurts no one. That is where I was with Hilary Lynn Hayward Thomas, aka Hilaria Baldwin. She even changed her name for us to make fun of. Hilarious. You thought I was gonna compare King of the Hilaria to Rachel Dolezal, didn't you? No, because Dolezal was a white lady pretending to be black. Hilaria Street Blues here was a white lady pretending to be a different kind of white lady. Hysterical and embarrassing, but no big deal. That's what I thought until I started to do some research and read what other folks had already written and said about the situation. All the spicy, hot, caliente takes didn't trigger me. This Instagram post from Fool on the Hilaria did. One Tree Hilaria wrote about walking around New York speaking Spanish to her kids and someone asking her if she was the kid's nanny. And View to a Hilaria was offended that she was racismed at. Are you serious?
I'm about to beat this bitch up.
My original plan for this video was to sit here and trash talk and make fun of halfway over the Hilaria, which I'm still gonna do some. But Hollywood Hilaria had to go and make her ridiculosity into a real thing I have to now break down and talk about. And the gloves are off. Racism as a concept most of us are familiar with. Having to deal with it in real life is something us ethnic folks know very personally. Between the black branch of the family being killed by the police for being black, and us Latino Hispanic folks being told to go back to your country, and the Middle Eastern part of the family being called terrorists, and the Asian part of the family suffering heinous hate crimes because of this caca machine. So, running up that Hilaria to be claiming racism because she was asked a dumb question, I need to whoop some nalgas. We are gonna break down a lot of the racial dogmas and how Hilaria Has Eyes got away with this racket for so long. The biggest question neither my sister nor I could answer is why? Why did Cypress Hilaria think she could get away with this? Maybe by the end of this, we will be able to answer these questions. Why did you do this? How do you benefit from this? We'll see. I have a lot of thoughts and feelings, and we're gonna dive right into it. Starting with a much needed clarification. Parte uno. We are not the same. It's super tragic that this isn't a given, yet here we are. Folks from Latin America and the Caribbean are people of color and or Latino Hispanic, whichever term is preferred. Folks from Spain are not people of color and not Latino or Hispanic. So therefore, they are white. Yes, I know, like with everything in life, this is not 100% true, but it is like 96% true, and shut up, I'm trying to make a point here. Like I said before, One Tree Hilaria is a white lady pretending to be a different kind of white lady. People from Spain are white. Even from Majorca, like Notting Hilaria was claiming to be from. And this might come as a shock to many people, even non-racist folks. 1. The proud white heritage many white supremacist culeros claim stems from Europe. And by Europe, I mean Western Europe, aka the only part of the world that matters and has ever done anything worthwhile. Sorry, Eastern Europe and rest of the world. Spain is part of the proud, legitimate white Western civilization caca are always prattling on and on about. 2. Spain is a place that sent over the conquistador cabrones to the New World to do colonialization, genocide, pillage and plunder all the human and natural resources they could. The two most famous man nacidos are Cortés and Columbus. Along with their crews, they were the first white people the indigenous folks in the New World had ever seen. Romanticized versions of the conquest claim that Hernán Cortés was this blonde Adonis god that was prophesied to return and conquer the Mexica. All historical accounts, though, point to Cortés not being a blonde, and this fabled Aztec prophecy only existed in letters and journals written by Cortés. So, unreliable narrator, to say the least. It's said that Cortés conquered the Mexica because of the genetic and intellectual superiority of the white man. Really? Let's take a look at some dates, shall we? Cortés and his men arrived on the Yucatan Peninsula in 1519, and it took until 1521 for the Mexica Empire to fall completely. So yeah, 100% white man superiority. After famine, disease, native labor from Cuba, a trilingual, ambitious woman, and rival tribes joining to defeat the Mexica. But sure, the white man superiored his way into defeating the most formidable tribe in Mesoamerica. Cortés, a Spanish man from Spain, was white. The only accurate thing in that whole conquest narrative that is 100% true is that the Spanish from Spain were and still are white. So, Hilaria has eyes here, claiming Spanish from Spain lineage is keeping within the whiteness that she is. And this is a very important point to make. Why? Depending on the level of racist you are, from super racist to non-racist, when you hear someone speak Spanish, most everyone thinks that person must be from Latin America. If you're super racist, you'll say all Spanish speakers are illegal and from Mexico. If you're non-racist, you'll know there's a whole continent and a half worth of possible countries Spanish speakers could be from. For those really clued in folks, they'll know Spanish speakers are from Latin America, the Caribbean, and Spain. Latino Hispanic folks come in so many varieties. Typical Latinos, Afro-Latinos, Asian Latinos, Anglo-Latinos, Middle Eastern Latinos. Yes, we run the gambit and we welcome everyone. It's not an easy journey, but eventually we come around. Since there is so much diversity in the Latino Hispanic diaspora, and for the most part language is the commonality that binds us all together, the original Spanish speakers, people from Spain, get grouped together with us Hispanic and Latino people. And if I haven't made myself clear yet, Latino Hispanic people and folks from Spain, we are not the same. I know it's confusing because of the language thing, but again, Spanish are the colonizers that did colonization in Latin America and the Caribbean. We are not the same. Stop grouping us together because of language. Spain, the white devil gabachos, Latin America and the Caribbean, victims of the white devil gabachos. Let me say it again for the people in the back. We are not the same. Since we are not the same, you might have expected me to talk about the language thing, but I will talk about the accent thing. It might make this whole thing a little bit more clear. Parte 2. Acceptable accent. To most folks, there is no difference between the Spanish spoken in different countries. One giveaway, though, is through the slang. You've got wey, chacho, coño, che, pana, carnal, tío, etc. If you know exactly where each of those terms are from. If you don't know, use coño at your own risk. The other way to know where people hail from is the accent. Accents are fascinating because not all accents are received the same way. Accents expose prejudice, xenophobia, and racism in such a subtle way you might not realize the white supremacist perception. My peeps with different types of American accents, you know what I'm talking about. Think about how differently a Connecticut accent is treated as opposed to a Southern accent. With English as a second language accents, depending on where you're from is how you're treated. If you're from Latin America or Asia, you will get go back to your country, or learn English, or stop taking our jobs. You're doing white genocide. As if starting over in a new country and learning a brand new language to better your life, your family, and yourself is a bad thing. If you're from a Western European country and English is your second language, you most likely will get asked about your country, to say something in your language, or be told how much better your country is than the US of A. Western Europe is seen as historic, elegant, sophisticated, and smart. Bunker Hilaria's accent was very much English is my second language one.
Married life is really nice. You know, it feels different. It really feels different. But I didn't think it was going to be different, but it feels quite different.
Which is why I think Climbing the Hilaria chose to present herself as a Western European rather than a Latina or Hispanic person. She gets to be exotic, white, and keep her upper class status. It's a win-win-win for her. Hilaria Wood found the perfect level of being a good foreigner, of the acceptable accent, until she got found out. And we come back to the questions I posed earlier. Why would she do this? And what benefit is there for her? Parte 3. Repackaging for white people. I seem to mention
cultural appropriation
a lot in videos lately. It's a complex topic that doesn't have a concrete problem solution to it, so it's fair. The one thing about
cultural appropriation
that does seem like it's agreed upon is the repackaging part. When an ethnic group does a thing the dominant white group doesn't know about, it's cool and underground. There comes a point when white people learn about the cool or interesting ethnic thing, and the white devils will figure out a way to present the ethnic thing as their own so they can make money off of the thing. Fashion designers do it, musical acts do it, chefs do it, influencers do it, and Beverly Hilaria did it. Some folks get a pass though. The badass that is Madonna appropriated a lot of gay culture in the 80s and 90s. Not being in the LGBTQIA community myself, I can't speak for them and claim that she gets a pass, but I think it's safe to say the way Madonna went about it is maybe more problematic than an actual cancelable problem. The difference is that Madonna didn't claim to have invented a thing, like voguing. She learned about voguing in the ballroom from the queer community of color and brought it to the masses. In the Vogue music video, and when she'd perform the song live, she would include gay men of color in her performances. Including trans women of color would have been more accurate, but this was the 80s and 90s, and gay men of color was as scandalous as things could get while still being palatable for white people to buy her single. Point is, Madonna gave credit and opportunity to the correct community. She didn't hoard all the acclaim for voguing for herself. That is why she is a legend. Rolling Hilaria, on the other hand, did claim not just tradition, art, or fashion, but she claimed an entire ethnicity. Even though it's a white lady ethnicity, Hilaria Cruz benefited from Spanish people being lumped together with Latino Hispanic people. What Hilaria Swank is repackaging, I would argue, is more damaging than tradition or fashion. She is repackaging a struggle. Malibu Hilaria is a mommy blogger and wellness expert, whatever the chingado that means. Her whole brand is about the struggle of being a wife, mother, and businesswoman. For a privileged, affluent white woman, that isn't much of a struggle. Financial security and being able to hire help is a very different struggle, if it is said to be a struggle, to other women who have have to do their very best all by themselves. Scottish Hilaria hit on a very valuable thing that could be commodified and monetized. It's the Horatio Alger myth for the 21st century. For those who are not familiar with Horatio Alger, he was a dude who wrote a bunch of stories about poor boys who through hard work achieved wealth. The classic rags to riches story we are obsessed with in America. If someone achieves success through struggle, we love it, we consume it, and we treat it as if it's something you can go and do right now. All you need is hard work and you could achieve anything. Most of us who have been radicalized by life know better, but the myth is something we still 100% stand by and hold up as a model everyone and anyone can achieve. You want to be billionaire hack Elon Musk? All you need is a dream and some elbow grease. You know, not millions of dollars, a team of geniuses, and luck. I'm picking on an overrated rich guy, but if you are successful in America, as a person of color, in particular a woman of color, aguas. You are rightly so the queen of all queens, a goddess on the earth. Rochester Hilaria, claiming Spanish heritage, was lumped together with brown Hispanic and Latina women, so she was perceived as having overcome being an immigrant woman of color in order to become a successful mommy blogger and wellness expert, setting her apart from regular white lady mommy bloggers and wellness experts. Since the Latino Hispanic people are super underrepresented in everything, when someone like Laguna Hilaria comes along claiming Spanish heritage, outlets like Hola and Latina Magazine will come to profile and promote her. Because like with every minority, we are desperate for representation. As with every instance of being desperate, you end up with trash that is not worth your time or efforts. Now, if you're a puto jerk, you might ask, what's the difference between what Vernon Hilaria did with other folks passing as white? Let's talk about it. Parte 4. Passing. Trying to equate being white and pretending to be a different race with being from a different race and pretending to be white may sound like it's the same thing, but guess what, Buttercup? It's not. Being white in America means being in the dominant group. Being a person of color means being in a subordinate group in America. Historically, a white person pretending to be a person of color carries no benefit whatsoever. So, until relatively recently, we hadn't seen it. Now that collectively we have decided to recognize and celebrate people of color, we are seeing the phenomena of white folks pretending to be of color. Since being a person of color comes with no benefit in the white supremacist society we live in, people of color have found so many benefits passing as white. Up until recently, passing meant a person of color looking, acting, being perceived as white. Now we have to have the term racial passing because white people are the worst. Because of white supremacy, did people of color need the act of passing? But because white people no pueden ver ojos en otra cara, we have racial passing. Con una chingada. Let's look at the definition of racial passing from Wikipedia.
Wikipedia? You're using Wikipedia as your source of information?
Yes, I know, but it was the only place that had a succinct definition. Racial passing occurs when a person classified as a member of one racial group is accepted, passes, as a member of another. Historically, the term has been used primarily in the United States to describe a person of color or of multiracial ancestry who assimilated into the white majority to escape the legal and social conventions of racial segregation and discrimination. White passing is meant to help people of color be given a chance in our white supremacist society. There are way too many negative connotations attached to your ethnicity if you are a person of color. If you are white, the only real negative connotation is being racist. In theory, That should be a big problem, but as we have seen, all you need to do is deny or promise to do better. Depending on how likable you are, you could have another chance or multiple chances. Plus, a thing like racism is seen as an individual's problem, not really a problem with white people as a whole. Because even if you're not racist or anti-racist, as a white person, you benefit a lot from white supremacy. Since that benefit is there, and it's a lot, there's no downside at all to try and pass as white. In the past, if you were white passing and you were found out, there were real repercussions. Being driven out of town, assaulted, lynched, and killed. So a lot of white passing people would completely cut out family from their lives. This is what historian Allison Hobbs calls chosen exile. Important for the upward mobility that people of color don't have. Tragic to have to deny who you are just to have a better life. Nowadays, there isn't quite the same level having to cut out everything ethnic about yourself. If you do pass and are found out now, what would be the downside? Even super racist people might say, that's okay, you're one of the good ones. You've assimilated. You're good. And again, there is nothing but benefit to being white. In particular, if you're a white man, you kind of just fail upward. Whereas if you're a person of color and or an immigrant, you have to justify your existence. You have to prove you're an ultra hard worker, talented, have entertainment value, a genius, or all of the above, at the very least. The thing to call out when it comes to passing isn't why do people of color get away with it and not folks like Anaheim Hilaria. It's more of a check your privilege situation. As a light-skinned Latina, I could totally pass as white if I wanted to. If you didn't know, my name is Ruby Perez Ochoa. Have fun Googling that one. I could be basic white girl Ruby Jones, and you'd never know. I'm light-skinned, and according to Thirsty White Boys, I look exotic and not foreign. I'm educated, well-spoken, fluent in the white man's pop culture. I don't have an obvious English isn't my first language accent, which it isn't. I'm a naturally born U.S. citizen. My family who lives in the U.S. aren't just legal, they're all U.S. citizens too. I could pass. It's insane how much privilege I have, and me checking that privilege proves how the issue is all about privilege. Lake in the Hilaria already has a ton more privilege than someone like me, and she wanted to benefit from an immigrant struggle narrative. A narrative designed to uplift people with no privilege or advantage whatsoever. There is one last thing I want to cover, and that is the idea of racism. Cedar Hilaria claimed racism, but was it actually racism? Let's investigate. Neta 5. Racismo? Did Louder Hilaria suffer a microaggression of racism? In her Instagram post, she mentions how her kids look white while she doesn't, I guess, and was speaking Spanish. So people asked her if she was the nanny. Her Instagram post tries to poke fun at white people wanting her to teach their kids Spanish. The way this post starts off, though, it makes it seem like she wants you to think she did experience racism. That's gonna be a no from me. As established before, Hilaria Duff has an acceptable accent. There is a big difference between Latino Hispanic Spanish and el Castellán de la Real Academia de España.
Mareada. Sí, pero estoy bien, sí. Cansada, mareada, pero estoy bien, no. Casi tengo 3 meses, entonces estoy en esta época, pero bien.
Hilaria Hemingway, speaking fancy lispy Castilian, is being offered a job and not being called a beaner, wetback, brownie, greaser, chola, spick, or told to speak English or go back to Mexico. As for her being asked if she is the nanny, get over it. I get confused for being my white-looking mom's nurse/servant all the time. Since only white boys hit me up, if I were to have kids, I'd look like their nannies too, so... whatever. For now, I just tease my mom for looking not only white, but rich enough to have a servant. Goals. As for Hickory Hilaria, no racism was detected. Conclusion. I'm tired of talking about La Payasa Hilaria. Although I'm glad she pretended to be from Spain, it made my sister and me laugh for days. We got to break down important racial and ethnic stuff, so thanks for that too, Hilarias. If you want Latina/Hispanic wellness and mommy bloggers, I'll link some lists of who to follow and support in the carcancha down below. Let me know what are your thoughts on this whole Hilaria Baldwin situation. Did you even notice? And if you're white and want to pretend to be a person of color, know that you can't hide your past. We have the internet on our phones. Salud.